What was the most horrific compliment a man has ever given you? Content warning: looking for real gut grinders. Not to me, but I bet you were really attractive when you were young. Corollary: you look really good / pause / for your age. Ouch. I'm 50 but not dead. Go fuck yourself. I mean, thank you, I guess. My partner and I were at a higher end brunch buffet. Behaved as I usually do, and our server goes, "Does she usually eat this well, sir?" I was horrified and thought he was referring to a pet animal. If I had the chance, I don't think I could stop myself from fucking you. Did you just say you'd rape me? Thankfully the people was with made it very clear he was no longer welcome. Always hilarious when men say to me, "I'd totally fuck you if you lost some weight," as if there's any chance in hell. LD fuck them at any weight. Your hips look like they'll give birth to strong boys. There were no coherent words that I could come up with to that compliment. Was he Viking from the Middle Ages? Some stranger called me hot when I was 13 and told Mel could pass off as 18 when I told him how old, or young, I was. It made me sick to the stomach, and he sat down next to me when we got on the train and kept talking to me, and I didn't know how to tell someone else on the train that felt unsafe since I was a very shy kid. My former landlord texted me that he loved to fantasize about all the places he could hide in my house so that he could ambush me anytime he wanted. He reminded me that he had the key. I moved out the next week. I had a guy in college tell me, in the middle of making out, that I reminded him of his mother. Broke up with him the next day. No thank you, Norman Bates. You look hot, but like addicted to heroin hot. I told him to fuck off and lick my boots, and he actually licked them. Super weird. You will look so pretty wearing a hijab. I am an agnostic and like to wear tank tops. You will look so pretty wearing a hijab. I am an agnostic and like to wear tank tops. Edit for those who asked. I have never identified myself to his religion. And you'll look prettier with your mouth shut, but I doubt that too. Well, I was 14 at an anime convention when a 19-year-old man told me I was hot, followed by "No one here over 16 is hot." I was flattered at the time because I had no self-esteem and thought I was super unattractive. Whenever I think about it now, my skin crawls. Dude here, but a real double whammy I just felt compelled to share. I recently basically banished somebody for life when he made a comment to me that my 12-year-old daughter looked very well developed and implied that she was going to make all my hair turn gray in the next few years. A guy I went out with told me he was shocked my brother is gay while having such a beautiful sister like me. I'd hope my fucking brother wouldn't be attracted to me under any circumstance. WTF. One time I was walking into my job, which is in a pretty not great neighborhood, and a guy yelled, "Hey, they're beautiful," at me. I gave him a look and kept walking. He followed me a few steps, and told me I should have thanked him for the compliment. Ladies, I lost it. I lectured that guy so hard. Told him I didn't have to thank anyone for a compliment I didn't ask for, that women didn't. Particularly I like unsolicited observations about their looks, and that he should probably either learn to be respectful to women or kindly fuck off. This guy just stared at me open-mouthed for the duration of my angry rant, tried meekly a few times to interject, but gave up because it just didn't stop ranting, and put my hand up every time he tried. Towards the end of this interaction, a police officer I kind of knew, my job requires quite a bit of police interaction, kinda jogged/walked quickly over to me, said he urgently needed to speak with me, and kind of guided me away and into the building. He asks me what the hell was doing, tells me that guy was a gang member, explains the whole shirt color indicating gang affiliation thing, and tells me to never do anything like that again. I gotta say though, that alleged gang member sees me regularly, is incredibly nice and polite to me, and regularly refers to me as ma'am. You're hot. For a ginger. Several men actually. Gee, thanks. Ugh, all of the times I've been complimented have had to do with my red hair. All redheads give good head. I bet you're like all redheads, absolute freak in bed. I hope your man has balls of steel to keep up with you since you're a redhead, etc., etc., etc. It was awful. You're probably very insecure and feel bad about your height, but I'm 5'11". I get they possibly meant well on some level, but I've never listened to their whole sentence. There's been more than one LOL. Wasn't said to me but to one of my friends I was at the bar with, about me. Your friend looks like she would be hard to rape. Had someone sit next to me uncomfortably but then audibly exclaim, "Hey, you're actually alright looking," like, is that meant to fill me with joy or make me anxious? Once I was on a date with a guy and he said he liked how you don't feel the need to wear a bunch of makeup or get all dressed up for a guy. I was wearing a full face of makeup including eyeshadow and fake lashes. I admire a woman that realizes she's too selfish to have children. My EMT instructor, after asking me if I have children and me saying I don't want them, and when it's really the other way around, that I had a witch nose but witches are hot. You look so much like your mother, by a complete stranger who then walked off. The only thing keeping me sane was the fact that I actually look like my father. Said on a fairly awful second date where he continuously nagged me before making a move, "How did your hips get that big?" Emphasis on that this is post Jennifer Lopez, but before curvy bodies were more accepted and celebrated. Also, I was like 120 pounds, lol. My ex-boyfriend used to tell me how pretty I looked when I cried. Every time I cried, many times because of his behavior. It honestly wasn't until I got out of that relationship that I realized how fucked up that was. This wasn't to me, but this was said to parents of teenage girls at the college I went to. For reference, it was a private Christian college that was almost more like a cult. This dude was also over 35 and liked to cheat on his wife. He literally told the parents, "Your girls are beautiful, they'll make great breeders," something along those lines. He was supposed to be the Bible studies professor and chapel leader. Instead, he was just super fucking creepy and I never felt comfortable around him after that. This 50-plus white guy who was regular at the Waffle House I worked at, I dark meat, proceeds to brag that he had a kid by a 30-year-old wild Jamaican when he was 15. Went into detail about how his son is now a handsome mixed high school player with blue eyes and loose curly hair, pretty much hinting that he makes cute mixed kids. I had my server smile on, but on the inside I was like, "You look like you'd make for an incredibly fun night but a terrible partner," which struck at my deepest insecurities in my 20s. I was once working in a store and a male customer came up and said that me and the other customer next to me would probably have some gorgeous babies together. Didn't help that my manager was laughing in the corner. "You have an amazing body, but you should go to the gym to make it look better, dear, and no amount of gym will change your horrible personality." That I look like a yogurt. I'm a resident doctor and I was recently seeing a patient in our clinic to look at an infection in his groin, and he asked if I could take a look. He looked at me and goes, "You should be impressed, I haven't taken my pants off for a pretty girl in years." Like, dude, I'm not impressed with your infected junk. I was in middle school and a boy that had a crush on me told me, "My dad said you have good birthing hips." I'd love to add you to my collection of girlfriends. He was also a mortician and about 40+ years older than me. My 40 female father-in-law, 85 male, told me if anything ever happens to my husband, his son, I'll marry you. When walking to my aunt's house when I was 15, a 20-year-old guy pulls up in his hot-up Supra and asks, "When you suck a cock, do you spit or swallow?" I flipped my lid and asked how it would feel to be in jail for talking to a 15-year-old like that. Sorry was all that came out of his mouth before he speed off, cutting of a police car and getting pulled over. "You have the nicest small tits I've ever seen." I was laying on the grass at my college campus about to take a nap, and some guy walks up and sits next to me. He says, "I like your red hair, I dye it." And he was like, "So do the curtains match the drapes?" I was so disgusted but too naive and shy to defend myself. And then he was like, "I like your eyes, roar their tiger." His friend were shouting, "Let her take a nap." But he proceeded to sit next to me and make me uncomfortable. What a fucking tool bag. What gets me is the thought of him thinking it was okay to walk up and disrupt someone resting to make these kind of unnecessary comments. Spent the entire conversation calling me awful names because I'm fat, then said, "Now let's see those curves." I was tattled on when I was 7th grade for my shirt being too low. Got to sent to the principal's office to change. A grown-ass man in his 50s told a 12-year-old girl I was well endowed for my age. "You look like you'd have fun at a sleepover. You should come over to mine." It was on the bus. I was 14, he looked to be almost 50, and my father was sitting right next to me. Your nipples are definitely for feeding babies. A baby literally couldn't miss one of those. It was said with a derisive tone by a boyfriend in conversation about different nipple sizes. Around the same time he looked at my vulva and said, "What happened? Because I have more of an outer than an innie, larger labia minora and very small outer lips." This supposedly from a guy who literally lost count of the number of women he slept with. Meanwhile, two different men with much lower body counts told me that I was very normal looking compared to other women they'd been with. So basically, tell me you have watched too much porn and not had sex with a bunch of real women without actually saying it. You're not girlfriend material, you're wife material. LD be semi-flattered by it today, but it made my skin crawl to be told that by a 25-year-old when I was 13. You look well bred. WTF, am I a horse or some shit? I was 18, and at a pub celebrating my town's football team winning the national competition. I was wearing a sleeveless football jersey over track pants, both in the team colors. Some drunk man in his 30s, 40s, decided to approach me. Didn't look 18, I probably looked 14 to 15, but to be in the pub you needed to be 18, and told me in a very aggressive way I would love to bend you over and fuck you up the arse like you team fucked my team up the arse today. 25 plus years later, I still remember the mixture of terror and revulsion I felt. You're just the less hot version of your cousin. I mean, you're both hot, but your cousin, damn. You are so hot, I am going to fuck you so hard your mascara will bleed. Honestly terrifying, insinuating would be crying. It gave me rapey vibes and scared the shit out of me. It gave you rapey vibes because it is rapey vibes. You're so tiny and cute, I bet I could break you in half. I'm a teacher. Had a guy chat me up at a bar by saying he'd have been far more interested in history when he was at school if he'd had me for a teacher, because he'd just stare at me and then proceeded to ask me if LD ever considered dating one of my students because he thought it was hot. Told him I wasn't into being a pedophile and that my aim as a teacher isn't to be attractive to 14-year-olds. I bet your mom was really hot when she was young, after looking at my younger sister. WTF. Nice tits. For a man that one threw me a bit. Family friend once told me you're gaining weight in all the right places. My mom told me once to gain weight so I could even myself out, meaning grow some boobs to match my butt. People should just not comment on other people's bodies unless it's positive and contextually appropriate. I was born missing fingers on both hands. It made dating interesting. LOL. There was this one guy, we hung out several times, got along really well, but no sexual chemistry was felt on my part, so I figured we'd just be friends. Well, one day, after a night of hanging out with him and his roommates, he texts me that he thinks I'm really hot, but my hands freaked him out, so he wouldn't want to date me, but he'd be down to fuck me. Gee, thanks. Made me wonder how many of the other guys I'd been with did it just to tell their friends about the freak they banged. You have a face I just wanna slap. I wasn't horrified so much as highly entertained, but once some gangsta leaning out of a slow-rolling Buick yelled at the top of his lungs, "Girl, LD fuck you and yo dog," as I walked by with my brawny pit bull tugging the leash. The amount of times I've heard that I have childbearing hips is astounding. Firstly, I was in my early teens the first time I heard it. Ew. Don't sexualize children. Secondly, I'm not having kids, so this is beyond ridiculous. Thirdly, the outside of my hips does not exactly reflect the inside of my pelvis. It might be fused together, or otherwise not ready for childbearing. You don't know. Everyone has that one inappropriate uncle, right? Christmas Eve family is all together. I was maybe 19. Love that outfit, with that body. Tonight you look good enough to make a lot of money on the right corner. Merry Christmas to you too, fat man. A homeless man once told me I had nice legs and followed me off the bus. Another time on the bus a man told Mel had great hair. Public transportation can be tough. I definitely learned how to look not open to conversation, if you know what I mean. I tried a dating app and went on one date. I don't eat much, and the guy said, "Are you on a diet or something? Because you don't look like you can afford to lose any more weight." When I was a PhD student at university, I was tutoring a master student for a couple of weeks. I was showing him how to do some experiments in the lab, etc. So one day after an experiment I started cleaning the equipment and he said that I was very good at cleaning. He never commented on my lab techniques or said thank you for teaching him though. Ugh. You're not the prettiest I've ever had but you could always fuck. Yay, with the emphasis on the last word. This was from a FWBLD head for years who was trying to hook up again. It was surprisingly easy to say no. And for the record, I'm older but still quite cute and always have been. GD chuckle fuck. I worked at Waffle House and it was like 3 to 4 a.m. and these two drunk trucker-looking guys came in and I wasn't their waitress, but she came over while they watched to tell me they said they'd like to bend me over the counter and ride me like a dog. I was terrified to walk to my car that morning. I've gotten the you would suit being pregnant way too much for only recently turning 17, but one that really made me shiver was you'd make a really pretty corpse man. You gotta love em. Oh wow, you're actually good at that? After watching me play a sport that I'm obsessed with, talk about all the time, and train for a lot, it was somehow a surprise that I might have developed any sort of skill for it. You know, you're smart for a girl, especially such a pretty one. This gem came from a dude in my biomed uni course. He had randomly been assigned as my partner in a lab project, and I had to explain, in detail, a very basic biochemical process to him because he didn't understand how the experiment we had to perform worked. Came this close to stabbing him with a micropipette. Guys would pay to have sex with you. Out of nowhere. Gee, thanks. Some guys will put their duck in anything. Not a compliment. When I was 11 I had a cashier say something about me being excited to get to his register because I had grabbed the cart and jogged over when he opened. Then he tried to pick me up. About this time my mother caught up with me and I took off to the car. She chewed him and the manager a new asshole. Took me a good year before I would go back. His dumbass excuse? He thought I was 18. Had another guy tell me he would fuck me but not date me because I am overweight. I'm like, dude, I have a line of dudes that want to fuck me and show me off. Another one was one love your saggy boobs. They are so big. The dumbass was trying to compliment me and is just socially awkward. I ended up marrying him. 27 years later and'll still tease him about that. I had to explain that saggy and body parts is never a compliment.